ConcreteJungle is a community project supported by Green Room 136. Looking for awesome bags for your urban carry? Check out greenroom136.com for urban bags designed and handmade in Malaysia. greenroom136.com. Music for this podcast is courtesy of Guitar Wizard Samad. Buy his album at asamad.bandcamp.com. Alright guys, welcome to the show. Very good morning to you. We are today at Raw Coffee at where is this? Wisma Equity.
Opposite KLCC.
Opposite KLCC. It's a very nice cafe here. And we're here to talk about Cafe Hop KL. Right, we have four co-founders for this project. Mainly starting with the project manager Joachim Leong, right?
Yes, that's right.
Then we have a designer Jamie Lim. Site design will be from Sher, and photographer Shean Tan. Right, before we begin to talk about Cafe Hop, let's talk about you guys. Let's talk about your background and eventually what led you to this project. Who wants to start first?
It was the key. So I guess I go first.
One among the roses, why?
Well, basically, I was trained in law actually. I went overseas, did the bar, came back, was in one of the biggest law firms, and then I got this illusion with law and everything, and I left it. But I was in a sales and marketing job in an IT firm selling software to lawyers. So that's where my sales and marketing background and also dealing with businesses, small businesses, that kind of background came up. So then, as I was doing my sales marketing, I was visiting a lot of law firms, and at the same time I was visiting a lot of cafes in between to work, mainly to work, or I tell myself that. So enjoying good coffee and just using laptop. So I explored a lot of cafes, and that's some brief background on the project. But I think where I pass the mic on to my cohorts. Yeah.
But you mentioned that you're a law student.
I was a lawyer. I was in one of the largest law firms in KL, and I left it. Yeah.
What did you choose to leave? That cushy little job.
Yeah, it was. A number of reasons. I mean, it was a very comfortable place to work at. The pay was comfortable as well, given all my past exploits. But it just wasn't for me. It wasn't someone who I wanted to become. When I look at my bosses, I just couldn't see myself. This is who I want to be. In 10 years, 10, 15 years time. Yeah.
And right now you're still with a company that's selling.
Currently, I'm actually exploring my passion. Yeah. Actually, I'm a barista in training at a cafe in town. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which barista? Which cafe?
It's just newly open. These guys are media shy, so shan't divulge. It's a bit of mystery. Yeah, it's even a bit mystery in this show. Yeah.
Are they in here?
No, they're not.
Not yet, at least.
I don't know. I'm just a humble employee. Yeah, I didn't opt to buy in. Yeah. So
okay.
Guys, yeah.
Who wants to go next?
Me? Okay, sure. So I just graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I just arrived in Malaysia a week ago. So I was actually back in Malaysia exactly 1 year ago, and I was quite used to the cafe culture back in the States, and it's very casual there. Like coffee is just this thing that everyone does, and if you need a place to go, just go to a cafe. And when I was back in Malaysia for the summer, I couldn't find anywhere to go. I know there are cafes out there, but it was so obscure or really hard to find, and you don't know what's good. So it was kind of frustrating. So after the summer, I went back to the States, completed my degree in computer science, and I actually met Joe through a mutual friend on Twitter. So just like random strangers on the internet saying, hey, we want to do this project thing, do you want to join us? And I was like, oh, okay, cool, you know what, it would be nice to have, something for people who are looking for cafes, when I go back to Malaysia. So I was like, okay, let's do this. So I was working remotely in the States on this project.
But you don't know each other?
No, we didn't know each other. I saw their faces for the first time yesterday.
Yes.
So
No way! Wow.
yes,
No, wait. We did Skype.
Oh, we did
Yes.
Skype. So I was like, those guys are real people.
They're not bots.
Yeah. For some reason, it didn't occur to me that they could be scamming me or whatever. It didn't occur to me at all for some reason. I was like, oh, these guys look legit.
Oh, I
Let's
hope
do
this guy
this.
is not creepy, asking me to make maps.
Yeah, so and it sounded like a good opportunity, so I just hopped on board. And I was also looking to build websites. It's a passion of mine.
So are you done with your studies in US already?
Yeah,
Or?
I've already graduated this May.
Uh-huh.
So I'm done. I'm back. I'm not employed yet. Still on a job hunt. So that's gonna happen soon.
So do you look forward to coming back to Malaysia, or?
Yeah, I
do
did.
you
I was
plan
actually
to-
planning to come back, and that's why I was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna come back, might as well, be involved in something that's going to be, improving the cafe culture. So that's my story.
So being a computer science graduate, right,
Right.
and being someone who is studying in US,
Right.
where the heart of the new tech economy is right now in the world.
Right.
What made you want to come back here and not stay back in US?
A multitude of reasons. I was actually interning in Oracle in the Silicon Valley, so that was like the place to be.
Yeah,
like,
the ultimate
first-
place.
the ultimate.
You had the heart of
Yeah.
everything
It
else.
was actually pretty amazing. I'm not gonna lie, it was amazing. If I could, I would probably want to live there. But the thing is, there are a lot of things back home in Malaysia that I want to get involved in. So this is one of it. It's very easy to say, hey, I want a job that's at the heart of the tech scene in the world. But it's also one thing to want to work on issues that you can relate to. And that's something that I really want to be doing instead of just hey, it's just tech. It has to be some cause that is important to me. That's why I'm back.
So is this the first project that you worked on, or have you worked on any projects in past?
This is technically my first freelance project of sorts. I've interned before in Malaysia. My taxi, I don't know if you heard of those guys. I was there last year, and that actually inspired me to come back to Malaysia because it's like, hey, there are people in tech doing like really good things, solving issues in Malaysia. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, all right. Who's next?
Jamie?
Alphabetical order, yes.
Oh no. So for myself, my background, I think you could say I came from a more of a marketing, advertising. That was what I studied in diploma and so on. But a very good piece of advice that was given to me when I was interning in Bates Asia was given to me by my supervisor. He told me you shouldn't be in this. I was in client servicing at that point in time interning, and he said, you should get a skill, because when you eventually come out into the market, what happens is anyone can be doing client servicing. And yeah, I may be jumping the gun here because I didn't eventually go into it, but he did tell me you should go get skills. So I ventured in using my degree to get a skill actually in 3D and animation. So it's totally very different course altogether. I was in New Zealand for 3 years. Tried to find a job there after graduating for a year. Was more interested in probably doing movies and illustration and so on, but eventually that didn't turn out so well, so I came back. So that was quite an eye-opening experience because I came back to Malaysia and I worked in events. Was their in-house designer, and it being a very small company, I kind of got to dabble in a lot of things, and a lot of it had to do with marketing, and it was it wasn't really a start-up company, but it was small enough to feel that way. So I got to try a lot of different things, and I got to see how the Malaysian industry works, because if you really want to bring things down to the bare minimum of things, you would go to events, because events you get to meet clients, it's short-term projects. You work from when the birth of things, getting suppliers, you get contacts, you get people who come on board. You're not only working on your own, you're outsourcing work and so on. So that kind of built my understanding of the Malaysian culture and the Malaysian way of marketing and so on at that point in time. I may be wrong again, but only having done it for about a year or more, but it gave me a kind of an idea. So when I was still in that company, when I saw Joe's Instagram, that's how it worked out. That's how it became a project.
First was Twitter, now Instagram.
Yeah, social media for the win.
So I kind of saw his sketches
Terrible sketches.
of maps.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I have time on my hands, why don't I help you? Would you go and, would you be considering going ahead and actually making this work? And then he was like, that was in like way before.
Early this year. And the good thing was she was willing to do it for free as well, actually.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, we didn't think of the scale we've actually reached.
So yeah, that was, you get into the marketing part later on, but then that's when all the things started just rolling over. So basically, I kind of have that kind of experience dealing in marketing and advertising, but with the skills that I bring in as a designer, illustrator, and in branding and so on and so forth. So I guess that's kind of more or less my background to what I offer now. But even though I'm still really wanting to move into more to illustration and things like that.
Was it difficult for you to move into marketing, considering the fact that you're more of a designer
No.
trained? And you're talking
Surprisingly,
about
that
3D
comes-
Max and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah, but not really. Surprisingly, that came second nature because I learned that first, and I worked in that first, then we moved on to that. So it's kind of it kind of flowed quite easily. But now to be very honest with you, I'm like at a point where I'm going like, I can do both, and I'm kind of stuck. Like now, which do I do? Because I think it was my supervisor said this to me also, he was the one that inspired me to go and get a skill. And he said this to me, and he said, don't be a jack of all trades. Because there's a lot of jack of all trades out there in the market. You need to be a master of one to actually go far enough. So I guess that's how it's been like for me. So I'm now like discovering that I may be a jack of all trades, may be better at one thing. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out at the moment.
Yeah, I think in most cases, in order to get by in the world today, you need to be jacks of all trade, but we are always master of one or two. So, I think that's very good advice. Okay, that's it? All right, okay, final.
Okay, so my background is actually not in photography.
All right.
So I started off, I did a degree in psychology, and then after that, I went on to do a dance diploma, and my psychology degree was in Nottingham. And after that, I moved on to London. I did a diploma, and then after that, I did a master's in history of photography. That's when I really started learning more about photography.
And coffee.
And coffee.
And coffee, yes.
Yeah, because it was only in London that I started really becoming more serious about coffee, because it's also, I think, about 2008, 2009 when the third wave coffee caught up in London.
How is that like? I mean, consider the fact that you're talking about a country that is predominantly tea-centric.
Yes. I think it's also influenced by Australia and New Zealand, because
Right.
a lot of New Zealanders and Australians, they went there to open their coffee shops. And then places like Starbucks and Costa, the chain coffees, they started having drinks like flat white, which is very Australian. And then and then after that, it was in April. I went back again to London. So there's a London Coffee Festival, and I bought back the London coffee guide and a map, and I showed it to him as well. And then that's also partly how
It was here, right? I think you showed it in Raw. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So
Which leads us to the early conception of the map.
yeah.
What was that like?
So basically, Shean came back with all these maps and all these books about different guiding people to great coffee or good cafes in capital cities. So I thought, and I've been around Kuala Lumpur visiting all these cafes. So I thought, hey, I think it's time that we had one for KL as well. And at that time, I was nowhere close to that idea, which you see now in the product. Basically, I was traveling on a plane one day and I was seeing all these Kickstarter projects, and then I was like, maybe I can actually come up with something similar. Try and kickstart. I know so many people. I've gotten to know people through. I was having eye gazing parties. So I thought maybe
sorry?
It's a different project. It's a different project.
This I've got to hear.
So yeah.
So what is this eye gazing project?
So eye gazing parties are like speed dating,
Right?
except instead of talking for 5 minutes, you gaze into someone's eyes without saying anything for up to 2 minutes. So it breaks the icebreaker. Yeah. It's
Amazing. So
Cafe Hop KL is just one of the many projects which I've been dabbling in since I left law. Yeah. So basically, from then I remember writing on a napkin or something on the plane, flying to Kota Kinabalu for some event. So I was writing down, I was calculating in my head, maybe I can get this project funded and actually get it done. So I actually came up with a prototype which is here, and it's miserable looking. And he even had it's not original, second draft, yeah. So it was just on a piece of paper, and I just roughly drew it out, showed it to Jamie. And actually, it was supposed to be a disloyalty card as well. So you know how you have cafes, you have loyalty cards.
Yes.
So you go to same cafe 10 times, you get free coffee. So this loyalty card, you go to 8 different cafes, 10 different cafes, and you get free coffee at one of the cafes. So encourages people to move around. I think there is I have some background in activism. That's my.
Yeah, I was just about to ask,
Yeah, so that's like other projects,
you tend to be asking the right question, during the conception of this idea, like, how do I get it funded? What is the variables and the criteria of the map? Have you done anything like this before? It sounds like you have.
I think
besides eye gazing.
I guess I had the confidence just watching other people do it, and also meeting a lot of people and. I was talking to quite a lot of people about this project, so I was getting quite a lot of encouragement here and there. But I think going back to activism, if you look me up online, you can find a lot of things. Activism, I guess, if you're talking about entrepreneurial point of view, it gives you a platform to do something with minimal cost, minimal risk, and you learn a lot more about yourself. And I think everything comes down to yourself, your self-confidence, you're self-aware, whether you know what's wrong and being acknowledge it rather than have I think the problem most of us, we have either one of these two problems, either inflated sense of self, you think too much of yourself and you don't see the bigger picture, or I think majority of Malaysians is at the end of the spectrum, which is the lack of confidence. You don't have confidence, you've been spoon-fed, so we don't want to leave our comfort zones, and that comes back to this project, which is I wanted people to leave their comfort zones and explore KL in general, not just about the cafes, but you go to different cafes, you meet different communities, you meet different people, you try different coffees, and there's so much to discover, and I just want people to leave comfort zone. If you go up to a person, some people don't live beyond Bangsa, PJ, or certain areas in KL, and so there's so much of KL to explore. Yeah.
So what were the earlier things that you had to ponder on?
Yeah, so when I kick-started the project, I think I fell into that trap of inflated sense of self.
Right.
I was perhaps a bit too overconfident. I thought
is a very, very common sickness.
Yeah, very common when you come up with an idea, you always think that you can do it. So I fell spectacularly like Icarus, took us to the sun. I was aiming for funding of 1,500 and I hit 136.
And you did this on Indiegogo?
Indiegogo, yes. And the great thing about Kickstarter and Indiegogo, it's always there on the internet, so you can look it up and your failure is there for everyone to look at.
I know. Mine is not on Indiegogo, mine is on Pitchin.
Right, exactly. You see, so that's a good thing. But two things came out from this project. So having this map, some people heard of this map. In fact, that's how I got my current job. These guys were coffee lovers. They heard of this guy, ex-lawyer, who's going around visiting 50 over cafes. Back then it was 50. So that's how they got to know me. They approached me, and that's how I got my current job at this awesome cafe, which still work in progress. And the second thing which came out of it was that the main sponsors of Cafe Hop, Barista Guild Asia, so they work with cafes very closely, training their baristas, and they're very closely associated with the industry. So I So they heard of this project and they approached me, and they were willing to support it by helping me approach cafes. Because with the Kickstarter, with Indiegogo, I had problems of trust. People, who is this weird guy who is going up to me, asking me money? Am I a scammer? Am I trying to get money out of it? And I had no credibility, no trust. So.
How do you derive on that?
Sorry?
How do you derive on that assumption?
I
Culture, yeah.
I think Malaysian culture. I think
But
yeah.
Indiegogo is more very much a westernized.
Yeah, exactly. Crowdsourcing.
Crowdfunding program rather than Asian.
Exactly. But I chose Indiegogo over my pitch
Yeah, Pitch-in.
because Indiegogo had lower rates.
Right.
And there was one option I could have taken, which was to take the money and run. There's one option where they charge you like 8%, and then you still get the money, whatever little you collect. But I didn't take the option. I was like, do or die, you know. And then I was actually I had gathered the team already by then. So I was like, okay guys, I'm gonna get the money. So I was
But before
like, pressure.
Indiegogo, why do you choose to go with Indiegogo and not the traditional route? You said that you were already meeting up with like over 50 cafes at that time, right?
Yeah, but I was going there as a customer.
Right.
I hadn't bridged that gap between in business B2B. I'm more a C2B guy, you know. Kind of, at that point,
were there any thoughts about talking to them and sharing this idea?
I was close to a few cafes, especially the ones closer, the ones I frequented more, and they were supportive. But it reached a point where the original idea was, as you can see, there's eight boxes here. To get 8 cafes to support it. But then we realized that there's so many cafes out there. Instead of going for, let's say, 800 ringgit from one cafe, why not ask for 250 from more cafes?
Yeah.
So that's we changed our business model, so to speak, to that. And Barista Guild Asia helped bridge that trust issue, and they know the people in these cafes. So that really helped a lot, and the fact that they have a bank account goes towards Barista Guild Asia rather than this weird guy Joachim Leong who's I've got quite interesting background in online as well, so it helps to have a more neutral looking and more entity helping. I think this is a lesson in strategic alliances, I guess.
Yeah.
So it gives them publicity as well, and the guys there are really supportive and awesome about the whole project. So that was the biggest boost in the whole project.
Yeah, in most cases, because the guild has got an agenda of promoting coffee breaking, and finally you come across someone who's doing
Exactly.
something that they want, but without them having to lift a finger.
Exactly.
It's like a no-brainer to just hook you up with all the cafes they have connections with.
I think it helps the fact that we're in you want to talk about red ocean, blue ocean. This specialty coffee or coffee is still new. It's a blue ocean, so people are more open. Whereas when you have a very big industry, try to enter a big industry like say law, everyone has fixed ideas and everyone's trying to take care of their own time. Whereas people here are more open-minded, so it's hard to like tell people the same advice which I did. It's not applicable in all industries. I think the biggest help was all the cafe owners were quite open, and Barista Guild Asia was very supportive.
So
No, I think the coolest thing that we found out, which we were discussing about when we found out that Indiegogo wasn't working, was that we found out that we came up with this theory-ish thing where we said that Malaysians or Malaysian culture don't tend to buy into an idea. They tend to buy into, for the sake of just being an entrepreneur kind of thing, so this might be a tip for people, that Malaysians don't usually buy into an idea or concept as easily as they would buy into a trend.
Yep.
Because Malaysians are more like, it's trending, I'll jump into it. And then they only feel they kind of feel more secure into kind of supporting it or funding it and so on. But if you're kind of coming up with an idea and you tell people, look, I'm doing this and this sounds cool, I don't think our culture somewhat in Malaysia kind of promotes that. Because it's still kind of like, it's your thing, it may not work for me, that kind of thing. But so when we discovered that why Indiegogo being something where people buy into a concept doesn't really work as much as you kind of get people like how it still works here, like you get main sponsors. For example, here was Barista Guild Asia for us. You get people to kind of like say, look, we are legit and would you like to support us? That kind of kick-started, more or less kick-started everything else in terms of on the marketing side. But before that, I think we were sitting there and we were like trying to figure out how it's going to work. And then we sat down and we discovered that actually it's harder for Malaysians to buy into something where they don't really know how it works versus something that has worked and just jump onto it.
I think some people also having, speaking on a technical level, I think Indiegogo, there's a problem with people's with credit cards and Indiegogo. I think there's something missing there. I'm not sure whether Pitch.in is a better platform, technically speaking. But to add on, I fully agree with Jamie. It's really a case of, I think nations require more social proof that this works, this is a good idea. So it'd be interesting to see what happens next with this project, because now we've established ourselves, we've come up, we're able to do the work. So whether that boosts our credibility and whether that helps, it's interesting to see what happens next actually.
So was it, did it occur to you, or did you see any pattern to exactly how many Malaysians were on Indiegogo, crowdfunding on
I was definitely keeping a close eye on Pitch.in and all these platforms. It's Kickstarter with a...
But I don't think they are a crowdfunding. I don't think they're a crowdfunding platform in Malaysia.
I mean, you want to talk about crowdfunding, I know there's been I think Personal Money sent me a kick on crowdfunding last month or 2 months ago.
Right.
So I didn't read that, but I think it's very fair. It's very new. It's nowhere close to the boom you're seeing in the US, where you hear about projects getting funded just like that. Just in 2-3 days you hit the limit. We're nowhere close to that. I mean, even Pitch.in has to have events to convince people. So I think Jimmy's right in saying that people are not so much supporting my ideas, more supporting the trends. You do find, but don't get me wrong, there are people out there who are open-minded enough.
Do you see a lot of Malaysians on Indiegogo?
Malaysians.
I mean, consider the fact that this map is very much a localized product.
Yeah.
And obviously someone from US who's looking at this product probably will not be interested, too keen to promote it, since there's got no relevance to them.
True. So that's why, so maybe there's a lesson there in terms of I chose the wrong platform, that's the audience, but I thought Indiegogo more as a platform as opposed to the community. I was assessing Indiegogo more because I thought it's a better platform, but in the end, that could be perhaps the fatal mistake. I'm not sure what would have happened if I went for Pitch.in or the other crowdfundings. Even quick causes now, right? Yeah, quick causes.
Okay, so as you develop the product further, right? Were you looking at it as a very short-term project, something that you felt, this is interesting, this is cool, let's try this, or were you looking towards a longer-term project?
We're taking it one step at a time. At the very least, it's a great resume project.
Right.
For all of us, we have something which you say, I was part of this. And this is the final product. You can take a look at it. It's very much our sweat, blood, sweat, and tears. Cliche. But for long term, there's a possibility we might do this yearly, because you see a boom in cafes in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Every week, I mean, you see the food blogs. It's like 3 or 4 cafes every week, and you also see. I think generally people are starting to appreciate coffee more. So there is a potential there. In fact, we are talking about approaching Georgetown Festival about whether they want to project. I don't know if we put that out there, but we are, yeah. And people have approached us to do an app, so we might look at that as well. So that's more environmental friendly, and I think.
What do you choose to come up with paper map rather than an app?
Yes. This is
Shean to
Shean.
Shean has to answer for that.
Do I?
Yeah. She feels very strongly about this. Yes.
No, because I appreciate physical maps more than an app, because
it's something that's more true to us humans, because it's
and it's also something that you just keep by your side. But what if your mobile run out of battery or something? I don't know. I always prefer something that's physical.
It's counterintuitive idea. I think most people say, "Oh, Joe, do an app." But then I think about it, and maybe it's a case of reverse marketing. I mean, one day if you do an app, we've already done all the marketing necessary with these maps, that the app will sell it by itself. I don't know. We will see what happens. But I think Shen is right in saying that it's the feel of having something in your hands. I think we're so digitized. I mean, all the projects which I've done, I'm more counterintuitive. Can you imagine staring into someone's eyes for 2 minutes? That's counterintuitive, you know. But I mean, that's kind of again something we should really as a society. We stare at our screens, you know, for long periods of time, and I think counterintuitive ideas will eventually come back. Every idea has a boom and bust cycle. So, you know, I think apps is also on a boom. So I like counterintuitive ideas. Maybe that's part of my activism roots. It's all about the way I see the world. It's all ideas and how long. And I think every idea will have its cycle.
So what the map constitutes right now is basically a giant map of KL and where all the cafes are. How many cafes is currently listed there?
Yeah, so the physical map has 28 cafes which supported this project. So thank you. Do visit those 28 cafes. They're awesome. Thank you so much for supporting us. And also the sponsors at the back. So I have to plug them at least once. So Coffee's Coffee, Dankoff, Areso, Kappa.
You know, you have to plug in 3 times, right? In order to get into the minds of a...
Is it 3 times? 3 times? I shut down 3 times. Sorry, guys. So there's 28.
Can you do it one more time? It's not the end yet.
Okay, at the end we'll do it.
You still have 2 more times to seal the deal.
So and then, but we are also actively adding more cafes to digital map. There are currently 80. Last night we counted 87 cafes. So we are constantly. This is another counterintuitive thing, which is most apps would get the business owners to list it. But we kind of took a bit of a snobbish route and say, you know, okay, we're going to keep it tight and actually visit the cafes, try to audit them. But I'm also quite forgiving. I know that cafes take time to get their footing, get things right. So some people may take issue with some of the cafes I put in. But at the same time, I do want to support as many cafes, and I'm trying to be more consumer-centric as opposed to cafe-centric. So I've been talking to these guys about how if we are to do this project in the future, I'm not so happy about taking money from the cafes, because how can you call yourself an independent guide when you're taking money from the businesses themselves? So I really want to make this as consumer-centric as much, because at the end of the day, the people who are going to appreciate the map most are the end users, and I think that's an important metric or whatever thing to look at.
For you not taking any money from these cafes, are you looking into this project more as a community project, or do you actually foresee this to be a business in the future?
At the moment, I think all,
because unless you take money, right, it's definitely charity.
It's not really fair to see it in that sense. I think businesses, you have 3 types of business. I was reading this from Seth Godin. You have the community base, you have the geographical base, you have the more of the I want it fast and cheap business model, China business model. So for me, this has always been a community. We all love coffee, and that's what guides us. And in fact, the people who beta tested it were actually this Facebook group called Coffee Monkeys. They help beta test it, and I also they tell me whether cafes are good. I check the group to see whether cafes are good. So there is this communities. It's more, I guess if you want to trade up, more community led. As for money, we do pay ourselves, but if you compare the market rates, we're definitely really under market rates. But that's because again we are led by this passion and community sense.
So you do get paid for doing this project.
Yes,
that's the most important. What's critical, because I think there is a misconception that when some things that are good, people say that you're doing something cool, you should not be paid. That's just plain wrong, because if you're not going to be paid, then you're not going to be motivated to redo it again. Then there is no longevity to a good project.
Exactly.
And that would be wrong.
I mean, from my work with eye-gazing parties, what I always used to do for eye-gazing parties was I would kind of give myself a margin of error. Like I expect maybe 20% of my guests will not appear. So I think I've used that philosophy here. As in, I told them that we need 23 cafes to do it to do this project. If we get 23 cafes on board, we're doing this project. Anything above that, any other sponsors, that will be profit to the project, and we'll reinvest as much of that into the project. I do want to keep this going. I think it's very exciting, and people are very supportive. Hoping to pay everyone a bit more, because my philosophy about when it comes to money, I used to struggle with that as well. If you love something, you should do it for free. But I think you need to reward yourself also. And the way I look at money, fame, flashy cars, women, whatever, they are more kind of indicators of success, but not what you're working towards.
Yeah.
So we just want to concentrate on turning out a great map for people to use, and whatever happens around that, that's a bonus. It's really a bonus. But at the same time, I do want everyone to be happy enough to do the work. So that's why for future, well, if we're going to do this, I've already talked to the whole team, and we are all going to come down and write down a secret number on a piece of paper, and then we're going to pass it to each other and open it, and then okay, that's how much the next project will cost, and then we'll look for the money after that. Yeah.
Sounds like the end of every episode of Survivor. So anyway, so now that when you finally got the support from the Barista Guild, right, and they are the one that's funding the whole project.
Actually, what they did was they provided a lot of services in getting the project done.
Okay.
In exchange for being listed as the main presenter of the map. They actually didn't pay a single cent.
Okay.
But they really put in a lot of work and took away precious time from man hours, because at the end of the day, Barista Guild Asia is more of a trainer. They train baristas. That's the main source of revenue. So that takes away a time from your manpower and time. In fact, I was just talking to them today, and they were saying that they might take their foot off the pedal for the next few projects, because it took more the resources than they expected, like chasing down invoices and this thing, and going out cafes, so issuing invoices. So this takes time from your work.
Issuing invoices for them to sign up.
Everything goes through Barista Guild Asia. So in a way, I guess this project will be more like temporary staff with Barista Guild Asia in one way or another.
More like contract basis.
I think some big boys, they do that, right? They have side project teams.
Yeah.
And to give that illusion of independence or whatever.
Okay, so once you had that figured out, what was the next thing that you needed to figure out? Like, for example, what were the initial thoughts about distribution of this map?
Okay, so we were always going to go through the cafes to distribute the maps. That again, if you take a narrow point of view, that's you're actually giving business to your competitors.
Yeah.
But the cafes were very open about this idea. In the end of the day, it gives a good story to go to the media and say, hey, we have this many cafes, this map, we've got this awesome cafe culture, going on in KL. So it gives, I guess, game theory speaking, if everyone worked together, it'd be a great project. But if people backed out and say, oh no, I don't want other people to know that there's another cafe out there, that kind of thing. But they were actually very open about it, so that's great. I think that's another great thing about a new industry, emerging industry.
Okay, so when it will be the next next map that you're planning?
Next map.
Or is it right now? Oh, there's mosquito.
We're still trying to look at improving the digital map.
Which is on your website right now, right?
I think my main concern, you were asking whether off camera just now, whether we are zero or hero. I really can't tell you whether we are there yet, because for me, I remember reading this article about how...
Wait, don't jump the gun yet, we're not there. The question.
Sorry, in that hurry. So what was the question?
You're doing my job. You're taking away my job. So before we get to that question, if let's say someone were to come up to you and say, I'm really inspired by the project that you have done so far, and they have their own project as well, what would be the top 3 things you would share with this person on how they could get their project started?
I think one of the best advice I got was from the journalist who built the story on Malay Mail about our project.
Right.
He used to work with Cradle, the startup fund, which is willing to adapt or willing to pivot is the term they use in startup. Well, it's pivot, so adapt your idea. I think our idea, I think Jamie's quite annoyed by this. I've adapted the design quite a few times and changed my mind about it and even the end product wasn't that great. So that's one. So be willing to adapt. I don't know. You guys want to contribute anything? Any lessons? I've been talking. I mean, another one would be, I think the team is very important. I think you reach a point in your passion or life career where you realize that you can't do everything yourself. I was at a point where I was sketching and taking photos on Instagram, terrible sketches, So I think you have to find, by luck or by, I guess what worked for me was I was getting involved in a lot of things. I was really making a lot of noise on social media as well. So I've toned down immensely since that. So I guess I managed to get a team together, which is really great. I think I'm very happy with the team I have today. So if anyone's thinking of poaching them, but seriously, I think getting a team together is very important. It reaches a point where you as a person can do only so much. You have to get people, like-minded people, to help you eventually.
Including individuals that is able to do things that to do things that you're unable to do.
Yeah,
to complement the project.
Yeah, it's also probably important to get people who are also interested or passionate about the cause. Because sometimes it's not just about like getting paid, it's about being interested in working in a project that's the main motivating force. And when I was building a site, it wasn't like, oh man, I'm going to get paid for this. It's more like, hey, if I finish this, there'll be this great site that people can use for finding cafes. So that was a really good motivating factor.
So you were in for it because you wanted to see a product being made.
Yeah, and it's also because I want to use the product.
I think we're the highest users. Very honest.
Okay. Yeah. Now you get a chance to answer that question. So where do you think you are in terms of the project Zero Hero?
So can't tell between Zero and Hero because for me, I remember reading this article about comparing the big tech story Apple versus Android, iOS versus Android. So the interesting thing about iOS is they actually look at one metric only. I mean, people say, Android is catching up. They have the most handsets being sold. But I think the interesting metric about iOS is actually how many people actually use the devices, and come back to use it. I think it's an important metric. So for me,
and how many people are actually paying money to buy apps?
Exactly.
Just equally as critical because if there's no one buying apps, they're just downloading apps for free or going through the pirated way. Then the economy will be very, very badly.
Exactly. So I think the lesson there is what metric should you be looking at that really matters to whatever you're doing. So I still haven't quite figured it out for our project. We left tip jars along with the maps in the 28 cafes.
Is that working?
So in fact, you got quite a bit of tips here. So yay! But you can't tell whether the problem is using that as a matrix. I think it's a problem using something physical. If it's digital, at least we have analytics, website analytics. So we're still studying all this information. So we're not sure what analytics. Maybe once we get a blog up, we'll see how many people respond to it. Maybe a Facebook page. Once we have generate our own content, maybe that would be good metrics to say that hey, people actually really do like us. I know that sounds a bit needy, right? Sounds a bit needy, right? But I think so. The next concrete step which we're going to take is actually do a survey to the cafes and the survey and the sponsors and also now it's a good time to mention them another time, right? So we're going to do a survey to Barista Guild Asia, Corpex, Dancorp, Areso, Kappa, and the 28 cafes which you can find inside the map. Yeah. So just to know that the metric, just to know what they think. Because they're the ones who funded it. It's always good to be accountable to whoever's paying you. Yeah, I think that's a lesson our government can learn. How to take one step at them. And also a survey to people using the map and the thing. So that would be a metric. At least we know gather some data to know how well this project is doing. Then maybe can come back and ask us whether we're hero or zero.
But will you still go back to crowdfunding to get the costing to make the next?
Yeah,
next
actually that was something we did think of. For the next time. I was thinking about it in the shower. I don't know about you guys, but I was thinking about the shower last night.
Shower, seriously?
Yeah. That's where you get the best ideas.
At least it's in the shower, it's not somewhere else. Getting ideas, and we know where we can get good ideas.
So that'd be an interesting way to gauge whether people are willing to support us directly.
Yeah, consider the fact that you also mentioned earlier that the reason why Malaysians doesn't really crowdfund too much because until they see an actual product. So now you have an actual product, and they may be users themselves. Who knows? Maybe they might be able to consider pitching in for the next one. Hint. Sam, you're listening, right?
The one interesting thing was I think with we weren't sure whether how to gauge how the market was going to work. So I suggested him to start out a Facebook page, and that was because I have a friend that works in social media advertising, and she told me that in Malaysia, that Facebook is number one, and it's followed by Twitter and YouTube and so on. So in the States, it's probably Twitter first and everything else. So when I found that out, I said, we should try to gauge what the market is like, and maybe that could be our promoting platform. And I think a lot of our loyal followers are probably those on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Yep.
So I think that would be where we could, if we were looking to crowdsourcing, could be where we want to go to. But why I'm highlighting this more is to actually thank them for actually having supported us all this while.
Thank you to everyone who's watching this. Thank you.
We're still going up, in numbers, even though we haven't been promoting anything. So we must be doing something right. So we're still trending.
But I think people also forget the social economical. People don't have much leftover income to kind of spend on other stuff, be it coffee or be it a map. So that's an interesting thing about it. So that's why I guess the most logical next step was to actually go to the businesses and get the money.
Right. Okay. All right. To wrap, do you have anything to plug? Any upcoming projects, events, or eye-gazing parties?
That was on a hold at the moment. But I think building communities, I think that's the next way to go. I think as we get more urbanized, the older ties, be it on communal lines or family lines, those lines are being jiggled. So I think community within cities, that's an interesting idea actually.
Okay, if you're looking at an actual event that we're actually...
Oh yes.
Shall I put it out there and make us all try to do it?
We have not sure. We're
not
definitely
sure
going to have an event for Cafe Hop KL.
Right.
Just to kind of celebrate or meet everyone.
All the baristas
When
and
is
our
that?
main sponsors.
When is that planned?
End of the year. So we're trying to have a main attraction that will be coffee centered. And then we'll probably try to have an open mic at the end of the day. So just for a fun night for everybody to just get around and then network with one another, and also kind of get our sponsors in to show them that we really, really appreciate what they've done for us. So yeah.
Where can they go to get that information?
Facebook, fb.me, fb.me/cafehubkl.
Yeah.
Okay. And where can they get hold of a Cafe Hop KL map? If they have not gotten one by now.
Yeah, we're running short of maps already actually apparently. So
Photocopy.
Yes, we're going to release the digital PDF of it
Right
now. If not, just
Print out, no? Maybe?
no. Save the M guys. I feel bad. But the digital map online helps locate your location and it'll show you the nearby cafes. So do check it out on your laptops and your mobile devices.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, thanks to Shamin. Yep.
Okay. So anything else we want to cover before we wrap it up?
I think that's it. Yeah. Gotta go.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Great job on the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah.